Welcome to A Moment of Xen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Xen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Xen Sams.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome back to another incredible episode. It's always such a pleasure spending my Saturdays with you. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and across all social media at Xen Sams. That's Xen with an X, not a Z, XENSAMS. Tonight, we've put together an incredible lineup featuring some remarkable guests across several of our signature series. First, in the lifestyle edit brought to you by Meliá Hotels International, we're joined by Down syndrome advocate Abigail Adams, internationally known as Abigail the Advocate. She's an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, an inclusion advocate. We're going to be chatting the inclusive horizon. We're going to explore how personalized luxury travel is becoming more inclusive, empowering, and accessible for every traveler. Then in Sculpting the Future series brought to you by alloClae, we're joined by Dr. Jonathan Kanevsky. He's a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon. We'll discuss why more women are choosing explant surgery, the rise of regenerative medicine, and how artificial intelligence is shaping the future of aesthetic medicine. In the Heart of Influence series brought to you by DiamondLake and its subsidiaries, we're featuring Mark Leo, frontman of Lyons Lane, alongside entrepreneur, investor, and media exec Brian J. Esposito. Can real music survive the algorithm? We're going to explore the future of authentic artistry as artificial intelligence, streaming platforms, and digital algorithms continue to shape the music industry. We'll also welcome you back to the Bosque Ranch Live speaker series, where we're joined by Chef Gabrielle Gator Gilbo, renowned chef and culinary ambassador for Bosque Ranch. We're going to go beyond the Yellowstone culture. We're going to explore how Gator went from Louisiana kitchens to becoming part of Taylor Sheridan's inner circle, helping shape the food, hospitality, and authentic ranch culture behind Yellowstone, Landman, and Lioness, while bringing that immersive experience to Bosque Ranch Live this September 12th. And finally, in the Going Deep podcast series with host Lana Kerr, she's going to be joined by Eddie Yoon, growth strategist, best-selling author, and category expert. So sit back, relax, and stay with us because right here, A Moment of Xen starts right now. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Leela Quantum Tech. Today's wireless screen-filled world leaves many people feeling depleted and stressed. Leela Quantum Tech's science-backed technology supports energy, performance, and well-being while helping mitigate harmful EMF effects. Trusted by world-class athletes, biohackers, and functional medicine practitioners, Leela Quantum Tech helps people unlock their potential through science and frequency. Discover what's possible for your energy, focus, and well-being. Go to LeelaQ.com and use code AMOX for 10% off.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome back to the Lifestyle Edit, brought to you by our incredible partners at Meliá Hotels International. Today, we're exploring a concept I like to call the inclusive horizon. It's the evolution of modern resort personalization. On the show, we talk extensively about intentional luxury, the idea that a world-class travel experience should mold itself effortlessly around the individual guest. But historically, the global travel industry has suffered from a major marketplace problem, an expectation gap. For decades, societal stigmas dictated what individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities could or couldn't do. Look at the numbers. Back in the 1980s, the average life expectancy for an individual born with Down syndrome was just 25 years old. Today, according to the Global Down Syndrome Foundation, that number has skyrocketed to over 65 years old. We're witnessing a historic generation of adults living completely autonomous, highly active, and dynamic lives. Yet, the travel market has often lagged behind, treating inclusion like a physical accessibility checklist rather than a premium, self-determined lifestyle experience. The solution? Visionary brands who realize that true hospitality isn't about checking a box. It's about recognizing the autonomy, style, and unique lifestyle of every single traveler. And joining me today to map out this inclusive horizon are two incredible guests who are the living proof that determination and opportunity can overcome any obstacle. Abigail Adams was born with Down syndrome and diagnosed with failure to thrive as an infant. Experts at the time even said she would never be able to do strenuous exercise. Well, fast forward to today, Abigail has completely rewritten the script. She's a powerhouse entrepreneur, motivational speaker, model, actor, and an elite athlete who made history as the first woman with Down syndrome to complete a sanctioned sprint triathlon, recently wrapping up her 16th race. She commands a massive social media brand with over 1.5 million followers, and she goes under the name Abigail the Advocate. Sitting alongside her today is her proud father and partner in advocacy, Steve Adams, who helps champion this global message of hope and victory every single day. Please welcome to the Lifestyle Edit, Abigail and Steve Adams. It's an absolute honor to have you both on the microphone. Welcome, friends.
Hey, we're glad to be here.
Me too.
So excited to have you back. Let's talk about the arrival and the check-in process. Abigail and Steve, I want to start at the very beginning of the guest journey. For any sophisticated traveler, time is the ultimate currency. We lead high energy lives, and when we arrive at a luxury resort after a long flight, we want to get straight to enjoying our stay. And statistics from the Cornell Center for Hospitality Research show that a wait time of even just 5 minutes during check-in drops guest satisfaction scores by over 50%. We need things streamlined. So, Abigail, when you first get to a beautiful hotel, you want to start your vacation right away. What do you like about getting to your room fast when check-in is quick and easy, and even when they have everything ready for you?
I like unpack first and then relaxing. Be on the comfy bed.
Oh, comfy bed. Oh, the mattress, the comforter, that's so important to me.
Yes.
And Steve, from a parental and logistical standpoint, how much of a differentiator is it when a hotel engineers a check-in process that eliminates the typical friction and waiting for families?
It's absolutely critical, particularly with a loved one who has a cognitive disability. Waiting is a lot of times very difficult, and especially after you've been traveling, whether it's for work or pleasure, to get to your destination, your mindset is we're finally going to relax. And it's so important to be able to, once you get to your hotel, to actually make it to your room in a timely manner.
Exactly. I mean, that frictionless transition sets the entire tone for a luxury stay. And when a brand eliminates the clutter and creates an intuitive arrival, they're showing that they respect your time and your autonomy as premium guests. I couldn't agree more. Now let's chat about concierge services and local cultural experiences. So once you've settled in, the real magic of travel is about immersing yourself in the destination. And on this show, I always say that a luxury concierge team is the heartbeat of a property. They hold the keys to the city, whether it's booking an exclusive local excursion or curating authentic cultural experiences. The American Hotel and Lodging Association notes that personalized local experiential travel is now the #1 driver for modern luxury consumers. Abigail, when you visit a brand new city, you want to see all the cool things that make it special. How do people at the hotel help you find the best places to see and things to do?
Well, you can ask someone to help, and you should ask them about the recommendations, like options, and a brochure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, brochures and recommendations and options. You basically want somebody that's connected.
Yes, connected.
And what kinds of places do you like to go visit when you're at a new place?
Well, I'm a city gal, so I like going shopping. I love eating. I love going to
Of
the
course.
spa or the gym.
Mm-hmm.
She just said all the most important things. Now, Steve, how vital is it to have an educated, resourceful concierge who can seamlessly tailor local itineraries to fit a dynamic lifestyle?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. When you're on vacation or traveling for business, you've only got a certain amount of time. And so you want to optimize that and do as much as you can in the time you have. So having a knowledgeable, friendly, available person to answer your questions about what you can do in terms of dining or entertainment
Yeah.
or just relaxing, it's really very important to have that person available.
Now, let's talk about the room expectations and the property amenities. So, I want to talk about the space itself. So, Abigail, you maintain an incredibly active training and travel schedule. I mean, and you have a deep appreciation for style. I know that firsthand. I've actually shopped for you. And you also have an appreciation for design and high-end aesthetics and cosmetics. You and I have had conversations about the skincare routine.
Yeah.
So from a dynamic traveler, a hotel room can't just be a place to sleep. It needs to be a premium launch pad. It requires an intuitive layout, smart design, and it really needs to be paired with excellent property amenities like the premium fitness facilities and pool spaces. So when you are
Mhm.
relaxing on vacation, Abigail, your hotel room is your home for that time. What do you love most about a nice hotel room?
Well, I love to keep it clean.
Mhm.
Most importantly, I do makeup and I watch TV in the room.
Mhm.
So
Chance
we
to
need good
relax.
lighting.
Yeah. I think it's important to have enough room. I think the size of the
Yes.
room definitely makes a difference. Cleanliness, I think, is what Abigail was alluding to earlier. You want to have confidence that the room has been cleaned properly, that the bed is comfortable, that you have room. If you have multiple people in the room, you need enough room for everybody to move
Yeah.
around. And so I think those are all critical for the actual inside the room amenities, but you also want it to be proximate to the other features of the hotel. So you don't want to be a really long walk to the dining area or to the pool or to the parking.
Yeah.
Again, the timing, the cleanliness, and the convenience are all critical.
Mhm.
Spot on. Yeah, true luxury lies in the details that allow for effortless independence. Architects call this intuitive design.
Yeah.
Now let's chat about premium dining and culinary options. So no edit of the luxury lifestyle is complete without talking about food. The culinary journey on a resort property is a massive part of the experience. And data from National Restaurant Association Insights shows that 72% of consumers view menu customization and dietary flexibility as a baseline expectation for premium dining. Now, true luxury dining means culinary excellence, incredible variety, and really the autonomy to fuel your day completely on your own terms. So, Abigail, trying delicious food is one of the best parts of traveling. I know you agree with that. What makes a meal at a hotel special for you?
Well, they need to know my dietary needs. I'm gluten free and dairy free. Make sure they have options and choices.
We're really fortunate that the number of gluten and dairy free foods
Mhm.
that are available have increased dramatically. The flavors increased, but again,
Yeah.
it's not available at just every dining facility, and so that's why it's important that when you go to these luxury hotels, that you have the confidence that they're going to have types of food you need. They're going to have the variety that you're interested in, and they're going to have people who are educated to explain it to you, so that whether it's your server or the maitre d, uh, or call down to the front desk and you ask, "Is this available?" They will know the answer with confidence.
Yeah, flexibility is the ultimate form of customer service.
You're absolutely right, and I think we don't make a habit of ordering off the menu, but it is so refreshing when that
Mhm.
offer is presented. Well, okay, you like grilled chicken and you want a salad with your dressing on the side. That's not how it's listed on the menu, but I'll tell the chef and we'll prepare it for you. That's the extra step.
Exactly. It's so important. Now let's chat about the staff education and inclusive hiring. So our
Okay.
final point today goes to the very core of hospitality, which is the people. Property walls can be beautiful, but the staff defines the culture. Global leaders like Meliá Hotels International are actively setting a new benchmark by training their staff to be educated, non-judgmental, and genuinely helpful. But Meliá goes a step further under their Travel for Good global framework. They are deeply committed to workforce diversity, actively hiring individuals with disabilities within their own corporate team. And according to Accenture's disability inclusion studies, companies that champion inclusive hiring generate 28% higher revenue because it fosters a deeper culture of empathy. Steve, looking at the macro level, what kind of powerful message does it send to the global travel industry when hotels and brands practice workforce inclusion and educate their staff to see every guest as an individual?
That's an excellent question. I'm so glad you asked it. It elevates people on multiple levels. It helps the person with the disability to gain employment. It helps the people who work with that person with the disability to understand that this is a person who is relatable. They have difficulties. They also have successes. And you give them the opportunity, that's a learning experience. And so both of those people win. But I think just as importantly is the society as a whole sees that here's a person with a disability who's being included, and they are not a burden on society. They are a contributor, and given the opportunity, most of the people that I've met with disabilities, and I've met many people with disabilities, they have the capability to contribute. A lot of times it's just a question of giving them that opportunity. So I'd say that that really puts this hotel chain head and shoulders above the rest of the hotel chains that we've been involved with.
Yeah, above and beyond. Yeah, and Abigail, that must make you feel really happy and really welcomed when a hotel chain is friendly and respectful and treats you like a VIP, which you are.
Yes.
Now I want to talk about the 3 non-negotiables. So before I let you both go, I always love to ask our luxury tastemakers for their absolute baseline criteria. So when you drop all the extra bells and whistles, it really comes down to the core essentials that define premium travel. Abigail, what are your favorite things that a hotel must have to make you happy?
Let's first start in the bathrooms. They should need a jacuzzi.
Oh,
Yeah. I like the bedding and the TV and also the vanity.
you're definitely bougie, girl. Yeah, no, listen, Steve, from an executive and planning perspective, when you're both filtering through elite options for your global itineraries, what are the top 3 non-negotiables that a brand must deliver on to earn your business?
We need timeliness, cleanliness, and friendliness.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to be able to check into the room, get to the entertainment or the dining or whatever we're going to do quickly, and we want to deal with people who are friendly, people who aren't too busy to talk to us, don't have other things they'd rather be doing. It makes a world of difference. I mean, and you see this in every facet of life. Where if you pay a little more, you get a lot more. And I think that's really what we're looking for.
That's so true. It always comes down to those core pillars. When a hotel nails those non-negotiables, it transitions a trip from a simple stay to an exceptional lifelong travel memory. Well, Abigail and Steve, you are an absolute tour de force, and you have given our audience an incredible masterclass in what the inclusive horizon truly means. As Abigail so beautifully puts it, when you refuse to give up, you send a message of hope and a message of victory. I saw that in one of your cute posts. I loved it. And so, Steve, thank you both so much for sharing your vision with us today.
Thank you, Zen.
Thank you.
If you want to follow Abigail's incredible journey, check her out on the gram at Abigail_the_advocate. And you can visit her website, AbigailTheAdvocate.com, to see how she's changing the narrative every single day. And a massive thank you to our visionary sponsor, Meliá Hotels International. If you are ready to experience a new tier of resort personalization and intuitive luxury, head over to Meliá.com right now to explore their world-class global portfolio. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Meliá Hotels International. From Mallorca to the world, our story began over 6 decades ago and continues across some of the most sought-after destinations on Earth. From luxury hotels that blend Mediterranean character with European prestige to destination-designed all-inclusive resorts celebrating local culture through immersive experiences, this is what we offer our guests. This is who we are. We are Meliá. Discover more at Meliá.com.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to Sculpting the Future series, brought to you by alloClae and Tiger Aesthetics. Tonight, we're going to take a closer look at one of the biggest shifts happening in aesthetic medicine, a movement that's changing the way women think about beauty, health, and even their relationship with their own bodies. For decades, breast implants were considered the gold standard for enhancement and reconstruction. Today, however, we're seeing a growing number of women asking a very different question. What if less really is more? From concerns surrounding breast implant illness, commonly referred to as BII, to advances in regenerative medicine and natural tissue restoration, more patients are in fact exploring alternatives that work with the body instead of simply changing it. While breast implant illness is not currently recognized as an official medical diagnosis, thousands of women have reported symptoms they believe are associated with their implants, prompting greater awareness, more research, and important conversations between patients and physicians. In response, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration now requires breast implant manufacturers to provide patients with a boxed warning and a detailed decision checklist outlining known risks before surgery, which is a significant step toward informed consent and patient education. At the very same time, regenerative medicine is transforming aesthetic surgery. Rather than relying solely on implants, surgeons are now increasingly using advanced fat grafting techniques, biologic scaffolds, and next-generation technologies designed to restore natural volume while preserving the body's own architecture and integrity. It's quite fascinating. Evolution that places healing and personalization and long-term wellness at the forefront of patient care. That brings us to today's guest, Dr. Jonathan Kanevsky. He's a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon based in LA who has become internationally recognized for his expertise in natural breast reconstruction and advanced fat grafting, explant surgery, and the treatment of women experiencing symptoms associated with breast implant illness. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you so much for having me. What an intro.
I love your philosophy, surgery as ceremony. I mean, I read that in the bio. It views every procedure not simply as a cosmetic transformation, I think, but as an opportunity for physical healing and emotional restoration. And I think what women want most is to reclaim their confidence. So I love having you on, and I love what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, it's a topic that's become near and dear to my heart, and it's really crafted the way that I care for patients and the work that I do.
Yeah. So breast augmentation, Dr. Kanevsky, as you know, remains one of the most commonly performed cosmetic procedures worldwide. But in recent years, we've also seen a growing number of women searching for information about breast implant illness or BII. And I was one of those women. So while BII is not, like I said in the intro, it's not currently recognized as a formal medical diagnosis. I mean, there's thousands of women, right, reporting symptoms. So can you break this down for me? Why are so many women choosing to remove their breast implants in today's day and age? There's a lot of options. And what misconceptions do you think still exist about breast implant illness?
So I think three things happened around the same time that gave women and then patients the legitimacy, the feeling of empowerment, and also the opportunity to share what's been going on. The first is that the FDA finally formally acknowledged that there is an issue with implants. Now, this isn't a new issue. It's been happening for decades. Back in the 1980s and 90s, the FDA actually put a ban, a full moratorium on breast implants, because a group of rheumatologists, these are joint and autoimmune doctors, noticed that implants were causing these autoimmune type like symptoms. So the first thing that the FDA did more recently in around 2020 is that they formally acknowledged breast implant illness and created the the black box warning
Yeah.
to clearly state that implants are associated with systemic symptoms, but also a rare type of cancer known as BIA-ALCL, as a immune system type cancer. So number one, FDA gave legitimacy and language for patients to use. The second thing is that they're basically the medical community as well as women were tired of being gaslit by physicians and doctors who were saying, oh, all of these symptoms are just in your head. There was a momentum, finally a breakthrough of a number of patients that were saying that this is enough is enough. These are the symptoms that are happening. And there was a coming together, both online, in person, in meetings. There was a critical mass that was reached among patients that could no longer be ignored.
Right.
And these online communities, these patient advocacy groups were essential in creating a conversation place for women to discuss and say, hey, are you also experiencing these symptoms? And it's these symptoms like fatigue, brain fog, joint pain, hair loss, autoimmune conditions related to the thyroid, and endocrine dysfunction. All of these things happening at the same time have created a unstoppable voice for women that physicians had no choice but to listen to. In my practice, I haven't placed an implant in close to 10 years. I stopped placing, the last implant I placed was my last year of training because I noticed more and more women were having symptoms from implants. And a complication rate as high as 30% with implants was just too high for me to want to continue doing any kind of implant surgery. So
Wow.
since then, I've been focused on using fat grafting.
Oof, kudos to you. I take my hat off to you. I had a doctor, Dr. Rankin in Jupiter, Florida, who I explanted with, who took that same oath. He only explants these days. And I love that you took that stance. And I think that's such an important distinction because social media often oversimplifies a very complex medical conversation, and women deserve balanced, evidence-based information. And you're right, at 30% complication, that's not something you can ignore. And physicians that are ignoring it and sweeping that under the rug for the sake of the bank account are crossing moral boundaries, right? This is what I want to talk about. So many women hear phrases like end block removal or total capsule removal, right, online, but those terms are frequently misunderstood because patients are often left wondering whether every implant needs to be removed the same way or whether certain techniques are reserved for specific medical circumstances, right? So when we hear terms like end block and total capsule removal, what do they actually mean, and when is each approach medically appropriate?
So explant surgery refers to the removal of an implant. And I keep a little implant on hand for a bit of show and tell. But just so you can see, this is purely for demonstration purposes. I don't place these anymore, just remove them so I
Right.
can talk about them. So the first thing to understand about implant is there's a discussion about silicone versus saline. Now, an implant always has a silicone shell. That silicone shell can be filled with more silicone or saline. Either way, the body has a similar type reaction to it because the body has to react to the silicone. And the way the body reacts is by forming a shell around it. And that shell is called a capsule. So in the world of explant surgery, what we often talk about is removing the implant plus the shell around it, which is the capsule. A capsulectomy is the term for removal of a capsule, but you can remove that capsule in many different ways. The term that is commonly used in the explant community is en bloc capsulectomy versus a total capsulectomy or a partial capsulectomy. And I'll describe what those three things are. En bloc capsulectomy means removal of the implant with its capsule intact as one unit. Picture removing an entire egg out of space. So a hard-boiled egg has a shell, which is like the capsule, and the hard-boiled egg inside, which is like the implant. Removing that as one entire piece is called an en bloc capsulectomy. A total capsulectomy would be like removing the implant and then later or at the same time removing the capsule as a separate piece. Not together, but both the implant and the entire capsule comes out.
Right.
That's a total capsulectomy. And a partial capsulectomy is removing part of the capsule with the implant. Now, the reason to do one versus the other is highly specific based on first of all, what is the patient presenting with? So if the patient has the rare type of cancer that we described, such as BIA-ALCL, it's important. En bloc comes from the world of cancer surgery, meaning to remove the entire tissue of tumor and its surrounding healthy tissue. So en bloc means removing it as one unit, as one piece, with any cancer tissue as well as normal tissue around it. En bloc capsulectomies generally reserved in the world of oncologic or cancer surgery for patients with a tumor to remove everything as one unit. It became popularized in explant surgery because of the concern that the capsule is actually what's creating a lot of the symptoms that patients are experiencing. So removing the capsule and any rupture inside the implant of silicone material to keep everything contained. It's generally indicated for patients who have a known cancer or implant rupture. However, there are increased risks with that type of surgery because it is more challenging to remove the capsule intact. In my practice, I focus on a total capsulectomy and, if necessary, on block capsulectomy. So I do believe the capsule needs to come out because of its inflammatory components. And the decision to remove the entire capsule with the implant is something that I make usually based on the patient's symptoms and what I see in the operating room. The reason that some surgeons don't remove the capsule is because it's technically significantly more challenging, and there is some research that shows conflicting evidence whether or not removing the entire capsule actually improves symptoms or not. In my practice, in my experience, I see that removing the capsule does help patients with their symptoms, even though it is technically more challenging and has higher risks.
Right. That's incredibly helpful because the terminology alone can create unnecessary fear before patients even walk into a consultation. And you're preaching to the choir. So now I want to talk about natural breast reconstruction. So rather than asking what implant should I choose, a lot of women refuse to re-implant, especially after cancer, after scares like breast implant illness. And more patients are asking, how can I work with my own body? So fat grafting has become one of the fastest growing techniques for restoring volume naturally, while avoiding the synthetic implants, altogether. So you've become internationally known for natural breast reconstruction using fat grafting. So how do you decide when a patient is best served with traditional autologous fat transfer versus newer techniques like alloClae? And if so, what are the advantages and limitations of each approach?
So the world of breast reconstruction and breast surgery has really evolved in the past few decades, and specifically with fat. So fat transfer has been around for a long time, using your own tissue to augment the breast. And the breast tissue is made up of fat and gland. So treating and reconstructing the breast with fat tissue is like using the tissue that it's made of instead of something like an implant. I live in the world of fat. Fat is the number one procedure or sculpting medium that I use to reconstruct the breast, either for a primary augmentation, so first time around, or after things like after cancer or explant. The decision whether or not to use your own fat versus alloClae really depends on two things. The first is there enough of your own fat to use? And two, it's patient preference. So does the patient prefer to have a liposuction procedure to harvest and collect that fat versus use a product off the shelf? In my practice, I decided that until there is a better solution than implants, patients will continue getting them, and there will be other surgeons who continue removing the implants. So it's basically two sides of the same equation, and that doesn't really solve the problem. So my practice has been solely focused or mostly focused on improving fat grafting to the point where, and increasing the options available of fat grafting to the point where implants are no longer considered what's the standard of care, as well as making fat grafting so good that the patients just don't
Right.
want implants anymore.
Well, I love
So
I love that you've made
yeah.
medicine so personalized instead of relying on a one size fits all solution.
Yeah, so with fat transfer, there's if you don't have enough of your own fat, alloClae is a good option because you can use fat that's donated from cadavers. But I always prefer, as much as I can, if the patient has some of their own fat to use, to do the procedure where they get to use their own fat, because that fat is rich in stem cells. It is truly a regenerative procedure because you're not just transferring fat as like building blocks to build a breast. What you're doing is taking all the stem cells, all the peptides, all the growth hormones, everything that fat is rich and full of, and transplanting it to the breast to help rejuvenate the tissue.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely advantages to having your own fat, but to your point, most women, I was in that spot, I didn't have enough fat to reconstruct after my explant. It just didn't have enough. And which brings
Mhm.
me into the world of alloClae. So the next evolution of body contouring, right? So it's a first of its kind structural adipose filler designed specifically for aesthetic body procedures. And what we've been talking about, unlike traditional fat transfer, alloClae doesn't require harvesting a patient's own fat through liposuction, right? Doctor, to my understanding, I've had this
Mhm.
done, this procedure done on my breasts. I increased a cup size. It provides an off-the-shelf structural adipose matrix intended to really restore volume, but still preserving key extracellular matrix proteins, I understood, that support tissue integration, which was a key component in my decision to go with this product, right? I mean, every laboratory and preclinical research suggests that preserved architecture may support regenerative healing, making it one of the most talked about innovations in body contouring, in fact. So, to your point, doctor, traditionally fat transfer has required liposuction to harvest a patient's own fat. So how, when we talk about the risks, the pros, the cons, how is alloClae changing the conversation? And what category does this belong in? What makes this technology such a significant advancement for patients who may not have enough fat to harvest?
So alloClae is really a game changer as far as thinking about what's possible in terms of breast surgery, because traditionally fat transfer, like you mentioned, requires the first step, which is liposuction. You have to get your own fat from somewhere. So alloClae cuts that overall experience and makes it easier because you don't need to go collect your own fat. You can use this off-the-shelf product, which is donor fat. So on the patient-facing side, it's really making the whole process a lot simpler because you don't have to have surgery or a procedure to do liposuction to harvest the fat, and you also don't need to have the recovery from liposuction. You can go straight to the injection and
Right.
sculpting with the fat. The outcomes are quite similar to traditional fat grafting because as long as the product is used properly and safely, you get similar retention rates of about anywhere from like 60 to 80%. So that's fantastic, especially for patients that don't have enough of their own fat. Traditionally, if patients don't have enough of their own fat, I either have to unfortunately decline them for surgery or they need to go gain weight. This offers a great solution for patients that don't have enough of their own fat.
Yeah, I love it. This is a great, its own category, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think fat is the future, and I do believe that implants will be a thing of the past.
This is my next question, but you're leading into it perfectly. So, do you believe we're entering a future where more women will continue to choose solutions like alloClae over traditional breast implants? I was just having this debate just yesterday with one of the top surgeons on Fifth Avenue. I won't say his name. And he's like, no, no. And I was like, I really personally, the group of women I'm like friends with in my community, they're just shifting away. What are your thoughts?
I think it's only so long that the medical community and surgeons can keep their head in the sand and have to push the evolution of what the next generation of technology is. And implants just haven't changed that long. You know, even the newer generation of implants are more or less the same thing that were years ago. It's still a bag of silicone with a shell around it. Now, on the other hand, fat transfer technology has been evolving year after year with better retention rates, better transformation of how, and what can be injected. And alloClae is a representation of that. It's something that doesn't require liposuction. It's a stable off-the-shelf product that doesn't require refrigeration. It's really impressive. So I absolutely think that the future is fat, and that hopefully patients will, and surgeons also will consider using more and more tools that don't require implants, such as alloClae. I think the big vision, at least for me in my practice, is that nobody places an implant ever again. I think the
Oh,
complication rates from implants are too high, too risky, too dangerous, and any patient who gets an implant placed will inevitably need a second surgery at some point in their life, either to remove the implant, to replace the implant, or because of some complication with the implant. And what's driving this is not just one force, it's a stack of forces. I think the safety around BII is pushing women away from using implants. I think the technology of fat grafting is finally coming up to compete and be better than implants. And, you know, alloClae really opens the door for patients who are lean, who don't have enough of their own fat. You can have unlimited volume of fat with no harvest, and it's really a 2 to 5 year game changer in the past in the past little while. And I think what you represent is this cultural shift among patients, that patients, the dynamic is changing. Patients don't want to have synthetic, artificial, foreign bodies. They want something that represents their own natural soft tissue, which is fat. And the ideal way to do that is to use either your own fat or products like alloClae.
now this is the bonus question. So beyond your surgical expertise, you've developed a philosophy you call surgery as ceremony, right? Recognizing that many procedures represent far more than physical change. So whether it's recovering from breast implant illness, cancer reconstruction, or reclaiming confidence after major weight loss, surgery often marks an emotional turning point. Your philosophy, which I love, surgery as ceremony, is unlike anything I've heard before. What does that mean? What motivated you to come up with that? And why do you believe emotional healing is just as important as physical reconstruction?
So, surgery as ceremony is my belief that a procedure is not just a mechanical event. I believe that the process of going through surgery is like a ritual that can transform and awaken a new version of a person on the other side, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. Traditionally, surgery was just focused on the body, so you wouldn't get a lot of preparation before and you wouldn't get a lot of support afterwards. And the mindset that you go into surgery with is just as important as the procedure itself in terms of how you see yourself afterwards, as well as having the support. So patients would undergo this massive transformation physically and not have any support on the other side to accept who they are in their new body, especially because after surgery, you tend to not feel great. You tend to be in pain. And a lot of times patients will go through what's known as the plastic surgery blues. So after the procedure, you feel kind of down and not really super excited that you've just had a procedure, because especially because you don't see the results. So surgery ceremony is a protocol that I've developed that honors the patient's mental, emotional transformation as well as the physical. So what it involves is patients working with a therapist before their procedure, doing a very targeted kind of therapy known as ketamine assisted psychotherapy, where they're able to prepare for the surgery procedure, to be clear on their intentions and awareness of why they're doing the procedure, as well as what they want to feel and look like afterwards. Then during the actual procedure, I use certain tools and protocols to help revisit some of the things that they visit in therapy as a ceremony of transformation. And then after the procedure, they also do a special type of body work that helps ground the patient into their new body, really supporting their psychological process before, during, and after the procedure. What I've noticed is that patients that go through this have less pain, they're overall happier with their results, and most importantly, they're able to really see the whole process as a transformation instead of just, I'm here for a body transformation and I'm done.
I mean, you're 100% right. And I think that's a beautiful reminder that the best plastic surgery isn't about changing who someone is, it's about helping them reconnect with who they've always been. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, right on.
All right. Well, we are at the end of our date. Dr. Kanevsky, thank you so much for joining us and for helping us navigate really one of the fastest evolving areas of aesthetic and reconstructive medicine. I mean, from BII and explant surgery to regenerative fat transfer, we covered it all. And the promise of technologies like alloClae and even the future of where this is all headed. Thank you so much for your insight. And thanks for being our expert on the microphone.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on and sharing your platform.
To learn more about Dr. Jonathan Kanevsky, his approach to regenerative plastic surgery, and the procedures we just discussed today, you can head directly to their website at auraesthetica.com. And you can also follow him directly on Instagram at drjon.k. That's Dr. jon.k. This has been the Sculpting the Future series brought to you by alloClae, exploring the innovations, technologies, and pioneers redefining what's possible in aesthetic and reconstructive medicine. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
This is A Moment of Xen in partnership with alloClae. Looking to add volume or contouring to your body? What if there was a non-surgical solution to increase volume naturally? No liposuction, no fillers, just real lasting transformation with little downtime. Consider alloClae, an innovation in body contouring. Follow on social at alloClae. alloClae is intended to be applied subcutaneously in localized areas of the body to provide cushioning and support to the patient's body where adipose tissue naturally exists. alloClae does not contain viable cells and has no systemic effect and is not dependent upon the metabolic activity of living cells for its primary function. This allograft is intended for single patient use only. Human tissue shall not be offered or dispensed for veterinary use.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to today's Heart of Influence series brought to you by DiamondLake and its subsidiaries. Today's segment is all about something that touches nearly every one of us every single day, music, right? But here's the question. Are we actually listening to music anymore, or are we consuming content? Now, according to industry reports, more than 120,000 new songs are uploaded to streaming platforms every single day. Meanwhile, studies suggest many listeners decide whether to skip a song within the first 30 seconds. Now, in a world driven by algorithms and playlists and AI generated content and viral trends, artists are competing for attention like never before. So, what happens to authenticity? What happens to musicianship? What happens to the emotional connection that made us fall in love with music in the first place? Well, today we're exploring if real music can survive the algorithm. It's the fight to bring authentic rock back to a digital world. Joining us is Mark Leo. He's frontman of the Detroit-based alternative rock band Lyons, known for energetic live performances, strong harmonies, and genre-bending songwriting. Lyons, for those of you who haven't heard of them, is carving out their own lane, no pun intended, by blending modern rock with timeless influences and authentic musicianship. Now, joining him is my longstanding co-contributor, Brian J. Esposito. He's an entrepreneur and investor. He's a media executive. He's the CEO of EIE Rocks. He spent decades building brands, scaling businesses, and exploring emerging technologies that are changing how creators actually connect with their audiences and, more importantly, monetize their work. Together, we're going to be discussing music, influence, ownership, branding, tokenizations, all that good stuff, and what authenticity looks like in a digital-first economy. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hello. All right, let's rock and roll. Literally, let's do it, guys. It's going to be a great conversation.
Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Okay, so the industry studies, Mark, suggest that many listeners decide whether they're going to continue listening to a song in less than 30 seconds. I alluded to this in my intro, and that's dramatically different from an environment that we grew up with 10 years ago, or even, our parents grew up in, right? And as someone leading a rock band built around songwriting and live performance, how do you stay authentic to the music you want to create, but still connect with the digital natives who are listening and their habits are very different today?
That's a great question. So, to be honest, I feel the rule of thumb goes back generations, and it's just stay authentic to yourself and let people come to you who relate to it. So I find myself personally trying to make sure that I understand what I'm doing with my music and making sure that it's authentic to myself. And then I end up putting that out there. And I know that in this digital age, there are a lot of people out there like me that are looking for something like what I'm looking for, and they will find it. And that's honestly what's great. And I feel like that's why I have a positive outlook on this digital age and this algorithm economy, is because you can reach people so much easier than you could 10, 20, 30 years ago. And if there's a million people in some city somewhere that wants this music, they'll find it, all over the world. I can reach people in England. I can reach people in Australia more so than I could if I was selling records 30 years ago independently.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, you're balancing two competing realities, right? On one hand, technology has given artists more access than ever before. And on the other hand, attention spans have never been more fragmented, right?
For
So
sure.
the challenge isn't simply creating music anymore. It's earning enough attention for someone to experience it, which are two very different psychologies.
Exactly. Fine line.
Yeah, it's fine
Yeah.
line. And this is where Brian comes in. So Brian, whether you're talking about startups, entertainment companies, or personal brands, one of the biggest challenges today is separating visibility from credibility, right? So what similarities do you see between building a successful business and building a loyal audience around an artist or band?
Well, the psychology is the same, right? You connect to a product, you connect to a person, or you connect to a sound or a piece of content. When it comes to someone like Mark, I found him searching, like he just mentioned, online, right? And with everything that's coming through my device, the things that I listen to, the things that I like, you hope it starts to feed you more things that you never heard of or you never saw before. So when you have all that happening and consistency, I preach this to everybody. Like, you got to be consistent with your messaging. It's a long-term game. I think, Mark, you're at this with the band 6 or 7 years. I know you've been a musician and singer-songwriter for your whole life, right? And I think past lives, because you're definitely an old soul like me. So there's something so special about an individual like him and the sound that he creates, which really differentiates himself. There's so many people that are a flash in a pan, right? They try to just make something happen with no real strategy behind it, no real support system. And then the audience can't connect to who they really are. What is their messaging? What is their purpose? We love mission-based anything in our companies and our content, great artists like Mark and Lyons Lane. So for us, we need to see all that. And we also need to see integrity and empathy and all these other things that we look for in partners and companies and leaders and entertainers. That has to be aligned for me. And when we have that, you just put a little bit more fuel on what he's already created, because he's set the foundation so incredible. And we've had great discussions with top music executives that said, he's got it. Like, these guys have it. That's amazing. That's the hardest part of the battle. Next is just putting a little fire behind it so it can continuously has that momentum behind it. And then at some point it becomes self-sustainable. And that's the most exciting part for a startup, a creator, to have this machine behind them where they can just keep going at it, creating, and focus on what they really love.
Yeah, I love that distinction because followers can be accumulated quickly, but trust is earned over time. And the strongest brands, you say this all the time, and often the strongest artists aren't necessarily chasing attention, right? They're creating consistency. And I think that's the most important thing. Now, Mark, years ago, people often discovered music through radio and concerts and record stores, and recommendations from friends, right? It was word of mouth. Today, you know this better than anyone else. Discovery often happens through social media clips and playlists and viral trends. So, as a working musician, do you find audiences are connecting with the music first, or are they connecting with the story, the image, and the hype surrounding the artist before they ever even hear the full song?
Also, another great question. That can vary between artist to artist. What I've noticed with us is it gets a little bit both ways, where sometimes people will stop scrolling just because they see the hair, they see the retro influence, and then they listen, which
The hair.
it's fine. Which at some point it's sort of like it's a crazy version of what was going on, in the 50s on the Ed Sullivan show, or what happened with MTV in the 80s. It's just like the next step of evolution with that, where there's a big visual aspect, there's a big branding aspect, and we play into that, and but then there's, on the other side of things, there's a lot of people that the Spotify algorithm, Discover Weekly, Release Radar, radio, artist radio, they'll push music and people will listen to it. People will save it. People will become an avid listener and never know what we look like, never know what our videos look like. So it goes both ways. And, some artists have it different than others, but that was just my personal experience with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting shift because historically the song was often the introduction, right? And
Correct.
today the artist's personality, the social presence, or a 15-second clip may become the introduction long before someone hears the complete body of work. So, yeah, I mean, the method of consumption has definitely changed, to your point.
Bouncing off of that, sometimes people have to hear the same 15 seconds of the song 8 to 10 times to actually listen to it, and
Right.
that's another trick of the trade, where you see a lot of artists where you post the same exact 15 seconds over and over and over again until these people become listeners. And sometimes already avid followers get turned off on that, wondering why they post the same thing over and over again, but then it converts to new listeners. So there's tricks of the trade with it. It's guerrilla marketing, it's cutting through the noise, but it's the game these days.
It's true. You have a good grip on the landscape just by virtue of, that feedback. So I think you'll be okay. Brian, one topic that's generating enormous conversation right now is tokenization and digital ownership. So for listeners who may be hearing that term for the first time, please explain what tokenization is and how it could potentially change the relationship between artists and intellectual property and fans and investment opportunities.
Cool. Favorite topic, as you know, Zen. So everybody's got their own idea around this. There's many companies that are coming out of the woodwork now and touching on this big trend. I've been involved in it over 13 years. So I like to think I've been in this industry since infancy. I've made every mistake you can think about. But when it comes to tokenization, how I always saw it was fractional ownership into something, closer proximity into something. And I think the best way I've ever seen in the world for community building. So you can go back and look at things like some of these meme tokens, NFTs, these token and crypto communities. They're so avidly foaming from the mouth, engaged with what they believe in. they're on their computers 24/7 in places like X, Discord, and they're just talking about these projects. So when you have that energy and you can attach it correctly and legally through compliance and regulatory, through an asset class like music, that's where it gets really exciting, because musicians and athletes have massive fan bases, whether they're going through, depending on the phase they're in. So as a marketer, that's already embedded in there. You don't have to go and spend money to try to reach these people. So when you start to apply tokenization or a regulated security token to a Lyons Lane, for example, or Mark, it becomes a new financial tool to help fuel the band to continue to stay independent and finance some of their dreams and visions and goals. So if you want to finance a new single, you can go to a fan base, whether you have 100 people or 100,000 people or 100 million people that follow you. They're already addicted to you, right? They love the music. They're following you. They want to hear more of you. And if they could have a piece of ownership or a revenue share into a piece of IP, which is a new album or a new single, or maybe help fuel and finance a tour, and they're part of the revenue stream of that, I think, that's great financially. But when it comes to fans, they just want to be involved at a deeper level to the creator. So the tokenization aspect in this type of environment gives them closer proximity to their favorite artists. And I don't even think they care about the token reality. I don't even think they care about the upside and financial. I think they just want to show more support and actually be part of the artist's journey and say, hey, I was following them when they had 100 fans. I bought their token. I helped support their merchandise rollout. Now they got 1 million fans and they're on tour. And you just feel like you're actually really part of that artist's journey and career. That's where the exciting piece is. And I think the financial piece is secondary in the musician and athletic world. And we're very excited we're having these discussions with Lyons Lane and how we can help support them through tokenization and really get their fan base more active to be supportive.
Wow, you really got your work cut out for you, Mr. Esposito, don't you?
Just like you, Zen. We do it every day.
Now, what's exciting, right, about this conversation is that for decades, fans could support artists primarily by purchasing albums or attending concerts, right? So this new ownership model it creates entirely different ways, to your point, for audiences to participate in creative ecosystems. They could be part of this journey, which is just game changer for people that are actual fans, not from the distance. And even if you're capitalizing on that 1% of a huge community, I mean, that's enough, to your point, to support the band's infrastructure to continue to create and make music, to really be able to evoke that emotion in those fans that are continuing to be loyal, right? So I think that it's a brilliant model, Brian, and I'm a huge supporter.
Thank you. I love that.
Now, Mark, Detroit has one of the richest musical histories in America. So from Motown to rock and everything in between. So someone coming out of Detroit, what lessons did that city teach you about music and performance and resilience? And how does Detroit's music culture compare to a market like New York?
I think that last word you said there, resilience, is a big determining factor of what it's like growing up around Detroit and going into music, because it really teaches you a lot about grit. As far as the scene goes, the Detroit music, there is a Detroit sort of garage scene that never died since the White Stripes, and they'll play small bars. But the thing about Detroit music compared to other cities, like you said, New York, is people don't just go out and see shows. Like, there are people that do that, but it's not like a Chicago or a New York where people are just in the mood for live music and they'll see a band they never heard of. In Detroit, you gotta sell them a little bit before they actually buy tickets. And we've talked with, as Brian said, we've talked with executives, we've talked with other musicians. It's a fact that Detroit is pretty much the worst ticketing city. And so basically, if you can sell tickets in Detroit, you can sell tickets anywhere. And you'll see bands that tour, you'll see their sold out shows. It's almost never Detroit. And so when your hometown is around Detroit and you build it up to where people are buying tickets there, you can take what you learned with that and put it anywhere. And that's sort of our strategy with Lyons Lane. And we're starting to see other bands around Detroit take influence from that and understand, really, just as I said before, that guerrilla marketing of pushing it. because people, if you don't do that, people won't come. I mean, people don't care around here as much as other cities, so you have to make them care.
You're 100% right. I think people sometimes, to your point, Mark, underestimate how much geography influences creativity. I mean, every great music city develops its own identity and expectations and work ethic, and Detroit has certainly produced some incredible, resilient artists over the years.
There's something so cool to be said that, the high school I went to had ties with Eminem, his family, and
Exactly.
thinking, and like just yesterday I passed by Jack White's high school and thinking, and like being able to experience the Motown Museum when I was really young, and being from Motown to Jack White to Eminem to the Romantics. It's these people that you come across, people that knew them. You're only like a degree away from them, and it's very cool because you'll hear these stories and it'll be, oh, these people came out near us. More modern, Greta Van Fleet, hearing about that in 2017, 2018. I was a kid thinking, wow, this band came from, an hour north of me. That's crazy. How did they do it? And so you're right, that musical influence, that cultural influence, and the inspiration of other people that came before us in the city, it drives it. And I think that's why people are still starting bands, even if it's hard to sell tickets around here. There's a lot of bands around here.
It's not all about New York, guys. Are you listening? Go Detroit. Go Detroit. And so this is a great question for Brian, who Brian and I, we both love wine and we talk about the 80s all the time because we're very proud of the 80s. But
Yes, we are.
Brian, you were born in the 80s, which means you've witnessed one of the most dramatic technological transformations in history. This is something we talk about all the time. And you grew up during physical media and CDs and traditional TV and radio. And now you're living a streaming, social media, AI-driven economy, right? So what opportunities exist today for creators and entrepreneurs that simply just didn't exist when you were growing up?
Well, a couple of things are happening. A few months ago, vinyl record sales surpassed CD sales for the first time in a very, very long time, which is great to see that type of medium being purchased again, and independent artists and even mainstream artists putting albums and singles out on vinyl. Great, another touch point, because as fans, we always want something we can touch and hold and be connected to their favorite artist. So that's happening in an historical resurgence. And then you have, Mark mentioned, you have all these streaming services like Spotify and Apple and iHeart. Like a great radio station for music and helping artists, or media outlet for helping artists. So there's so much going on, which gets overwhelming and confusing. And go back a few months and we talked with Adam McInnes of Sons of Legion and Journey and that platform that's built out to help independent artists really go out and make it. So the unfortunate thing with all these different technological platforms, the artist or the creator or the IP owner has no data really on who's listening to their music, who's watching their content. There's that wall that's up where they don't want you to have that access. There's a threshold of how many people they will let organically see or listen to that content before you start paying for it. And, we're working on fixing all that because the creator deserves ownership of who is purchasing their content, who's watching their content, because it's your IP. That's your ownership. So the fact that these companies are exploiting that and monetizing that, and the creators aren't getting their fair shake of anything in that model, we need to change that. And
Right.
when we can show a change in that through technologies that we've built, and they have a movement of artists and creators that are supporting that movement, then we can flip the switch a little bit. So all those things are happening now. But I firmly believe with this push in AI and all this content, I don't even know what's real anymore when I go on social media. I think there's going to be a huge push in going to live shows more than there is today. Hopefully there'll be a way where the mechanics of the financial cost of going to a live show can be more respectful for fans. I mean, some of these tickets with these artists is ridiculous. And I'll shout out Bruce Springsteen. I'm a fan one day. I don't like him the next day when his songs are about the blue collar worker and the working man and how hard it is out there. And you go online to try to buy his tickets and they're thousands of dollars. Like, to me, that's wildly offensive. So there's all these things that hopefully start to shift. You have this Live Nation, Ticketmaster shake up in the middle of everything happening. So there's a moment where fans and artists can really start to connect. And I think live venues is where we see a massive push in getting people out, getting these devices out of their faces and drop for a minute, and real joy coming back to an artist, creator performing, and a fan base enjoying that experience for a few hours.
Yeah. Oh, it's remarkable because, to your point, while technology has disrupted industries, it's also democratized access, right? So someone sitting in their bedroom today, potentially, to your point, reaches millions of people worldwide without ever going through traditional gatekeepers. It's quite remarkable. And if you know how to leverage and
Yeah.
maneuver the system, and I say the system because there is a system, then you're good. You've kind of cracked the code, but you have to understand how to navigate the system. Now, Mark, live music continues to thrive despite the explosion of streaming platforms, right? So, in fact, concert attendance, to Brian's point, and live experiences remain one of the fastest growing segments of the entertainment industry. So, what can happen between an artist and an audience during a live performance that simply can't be recreated through a phone screen? What are your thoughts?
It's community, you know? As I said before, you're reaching people that are just like you. So all these people at these live shows and these concerts, there you look around, these people were algorithmically targeted because they are just like you. So I can't even tell you how many friends I've met at concerts, how many people I've met that, you know, I've seen at other things, because these people, more so than 30 years ago, are targeted for these shows, and they buy tickets for these shows because they like what you like, and they're singing along to the songs that you sing along to. So there's something beautiful in that. And from an artist perspective, from being a person that's on stage, it's not like the stage is a barrier. It's like you're a part of it. You know, you're sort of soundtracking their life. You're sort of in with them because they're singing along to the words you wrote when you were 15, sitting at your computer, heartbroken over a crush or something, or when you were, you know, 18 and sad about something. You wrote these words that these people relate to, and it's not yours anymore because you don't resonate with it as much as you did when you were, you know, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. But they do, and they're all singing it along, and you can point the microphone at them and they have their own story with your words, and it's a beautiful thing. It's community, and you cannot get that from just scrolling on your phone.
They have their own story with your words. I love that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got
Uh,
chills.
yeah. There really is something irreplaceable about shared energy. I mean, you can stream a song 1,000 times, but experiencing it alongside hundreds or thousands of people creates an entirely different emotional connection. You're
It's an
right.
ancient ritual. I mean, that goes back to singing songs around a fire and ancestors 10,000 years ago, you know.
Or gospel. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's all throughout history, and this is the modern equivalent of it, and it's still just as beautiful. Shared energy. You're right.
Yeah. Now, we're living in an era where influence is often measured through views, clicks, followers, and impressions, right? Sadly, but some of the most impactful artists and bands and leaders continue to build genuine emotional connection rather than simply chasing attention. So, whether you're creating music or building business, I'll start with, I guess, Brian, because it's more from the mentorship perspective. So, whether people are creating, music or building businesses, what are some practical ways that creators can remain authentic but still grow and succeed in like today's current digital marketplace?
Okay, my answer is going to be very unique, I think, because I never look at, oh, that's an amazing artist and we can monetize that, right? Just on their skill. I can't look at it like that. Just by talking with Mark, I think Zen and your listeners can tell this is a creator that's obviously extremely mature and professional and courteous, well spoken. Even on this interview, he's dropping poetry, right? So there's so much skill and talent there. Great. You can do something with that. But when you get deeper into his heart and his soul and his ethos of why he's here, that's where I get excited working with people, because he's kind to his bandmates. He's kind to every call that we've been on. He's respectful. That's someone you can move mountains with. I don't care if someone's got the best voice in the world and the next Elvis, but they're a piece of crap. I don't want to work with that person. There's nothing I want to do with that person. If we can make $1 billion, I don't care. I want to work with people and creators and entrepreneurs like Mark. And thankfully for him, I've met thousands of these people, and he's a rarity across the scale. So that's magic. That's lightning in a bottle. He's got it. Now, when you give someone like that you open a couple of doors for them. For me, I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm not going to be worried that he's going to go into that room and disrespect my relationship. But all that is fine. I have no worries about that. I would send him anywhere right now, and he can respect and carry my name and my company's name. And I know he can handle himself. That's true partnership. That's how you can make things happen. So when you have that type of partnership and collaboration with the creator, now it gets fun, because I know this is his goal. This is his life's mission. He's all in on this. He's doing everything he possibly can and doing it right. And again, from executives for multiple decades that have said this to him, exciting. So even though there's millions of creators, there's 130 million independent artists around the world trying to do something, he's a rarity. So when you find something like that, universe brings people like me and him together. My responsibility and goal is to be a man of my word and do everything I can to help him, right? Because if I'm not supporting him and what he wants to do, then I'm the failure, not him. So this is what we've been working on, and I know he's moments away from just massive breakout, and he deserves it. He and the band deserve it.
Oh,
Thanks for
I
the kind
love
words,
that.
Brian.
Oh, there
Appreciate
you go. That's a major endorsement there, Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. I feel even bouncing off of that and what we've been talking about with the digital age and everything, in this time, in this era, more than ever, people know who you are rather than just what you make. So people are also, they won't be fans of you unless they feel like you're a person they'll be friends with. And these people are scrolling with you. They feel like they're with you all the time. By the time they meet you in person at a meet and greet or something, they feel like they know you.
They know you. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's important that you're a genuine person and you're not just trying to monetize your fans, or it's important that you relate to them and you're an actual, human being.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And perhaps, I mean, between both your answers, that's the, the central question behind today's conversation, right? Like technology changes, platforms change, business models change, but human connection remains the common denominator behind everlasting brand and every memorable artist and every meaningful relationship. So we know the continuity, and I think people should really be focusing on that, because that's the common thread, and those are the ties that bind. And when you evoke emotion in somebody, to your point, when they can use your words to deal with their current emotional state, you've done a ton of therapy for them and you haven't even realized it. So you're doing some great stuff, my friend. Brian, another incredible discovery. You know how to pick them. Thank you both for joining. Fascinating conversation.
Thanks for having us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Mark.
To learn more, you could head to lyonsln.com. That's Lions with a Y. And you can follow them across all social media platforms at Lions Lane. That's Lions with a Y, Lyons Lane. And of course, you could follow Brian Esposito directly on the gram at Brian_J_Esposito. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was the Heart of Influence series, brought to you by DiamondLake and its subsidiaries. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Tortora Promotions, specializing in white glove digital marketing, social media management, professional videography, and PR services. Based in New York City and partnering with hundreds of businesses nationwide, they deliver proven strategies that bring more customers through the door. If your old marketing methods aren't keeping up, Tortora Promotions can step in to help you stay ahead. Grow your brand and drive real results. Reach out today and follow them on Instagram at Tortora Promotions. Your business deserves it.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Bosky Ranch Live speaker series. Today's conversation is about the lifestyle America unexpectedly fell back in love with. Now, over the last several years, Taylor Sheridan didn't just create hit television shows. He reignited an entire emotional connection to the modern American West. Through projects like Yellowstone and Landman and Lioness, audiences suddenly became obsessed again with ranch culture and cowboy traditions, long table dinners, rugged authenticity, Southern hospitality, and the idea of slowing down long enough to reconnect with family and land and food and community. And what's fascinating is that food quietly became part of that emotional storytelling. The bunkhouse meals, the late night cast dinners, the comfort food that grounded these massive productions in something deeply human and, more importantly, relatable. That brings us to today's guest, Chef Gabriel Gator Guilbeault. He became a fan favorite, not only appearing on screen in Yellowstone, but by helping shape the atmosphere behind the scenes as the chef feeding the casts and crews working inside Taylor Sheridan's world. And today, he continues cooking for productions like Landman and Lioness while bringing the same Louisiana energy, Cajun storytelling, and larger than life hospitality directly to guests attending Bosque Ranch Live this September 12th. It's so exciting. But what makes his story so compelling is that none of this happened overnight. Behind the fame is a chef whose passion began in Louisiana kitchens long before Hollywood ever called. Gator, welcome to the show, superstar.
Zen, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. You are such an accomplished individual and in such a unique lane. I think the biggest question audiences have is, how does someone go from Louisiana roots and a love for cooking to suddenly becoming part of Taylor Sheridan's inner circle and one of the most recognizable personalities connected to Yellowstone culture? Take us back to the beginning. What first inspired you to become a chef, and what ultimately became the big break that changed your life?
Well, it's funny because you actually already kind of touched on, how he brought back this big community, big table eating, ranch cooking. It never left. It was always here. We've been doing that for generations and have not stopped. And that's how I grew up. We ate as a family. You came through the kitchen and got a plate, and you moved and you went and ate over here on the patio, or you ate in the dining room, or you went and ate in the living room. And it was always that big community dining that we've been doing. And looking back, even though I may not have known it at the time, I'd been preparing to be somebody that did that professionally for a long time, even as far back as, or my early days in high school. I was gathering people and feeding people in large masses, and we would do potluck dinners at school, and I would be the one that made all the food, even if it was just throwing frozen burgers on the grill, or making gumbo, or steak, or helping with Thanksgiving dinner. It was just something that I always ended up being tasked with. And I guess, looking back, thank goodness.
Of course, thank goodness. Now, wow, that's very inspirational. I mean, it lives in you, and it always had lived in you. And the idea of taking care of others through food is really, truly, I mean, that's the heart of it all. But what was your big break? Take me back to that moment that ultimately became the big break that changed your life.
Well, I had already established a pretty good career in the film and television production industry. I had been working in Louisiana for several years, and I started to get a little bit more notoriety around the industry about, oh, well, there's this guy, if you're having problems with your food, if you can't get people fed right, or if the job's really hard, maybe you should call this Gator guy, and, he can usually come help. And some acquaintances that I had and that are now good friends that just knew of me or had encountered me in South Louisiana and New Orleans. And they ended up on this show up in Utah and Montana, and nobody knew anything. Nobody had ever heard of Yellowstone before. Taylor Sheridan was in his infancy. He had just, he'd had a couple good runs with Wind River and his other movies and stuff. One fateful Friday night at around midnight, I get a phone call from a production manager that was on that season of Yellowstone, season 1, and he said, "Hey, Gator, you want to come to Utah? You want to come do a Western show?" I said, "Well, yeah." It was like September or August in New Orleans, so yes, please get me out of New Orleans in August. It was very hot and brutal, and they asked if I could leave immediately, and I said, well, that's crazy. I couldn't possibly do that. So I left the next morning. I grabbed the first person I could see and that worked with me, and we drove to Utah and went and joined the Yellowstone family.
Wow, that's such an incredible story because it really reminds people that the biggest opportunities, they just come from simply mastering your craft and staying authentic to who you are. And honestly, authenticity is exactly what audiences are craving right now, which is why Taylor Sheridan's world resonates so deeply culturally, right?
Absolutely, and that's why a lot of us like me, I'm not alone. There's others in our Yellowstone family that weren't actors or weren't celebrities, but they were celebrities in their own craft, in their own world
Right.
of, oh no, this guy's the best uh, guy that blows stuff up, or this guy's the best guy that serves cocktails, or this is the best horse trainer.
Right.
Um, and Taylor, he magnetizes those people. He brings them in and gives them everything they need to be the best at what they do that
He's
they
the
already
best.
are, but to
He's the
expand even greater.
Yeah, he's the best casting director. I always say that. One
Yeah, he
thing,
does it from just walking around.
yeah,
He doesn't need a computer or anything.
no. So when you first entered that production environment, what stood out to you most about the culture Taylor Sheridan creates behind the scenes? And how important was food in helping bring people together during those long production days?
Uh, I was brought there specifically to feed that cowboy guy. That's all they told me. They said we have this cowboy type fella. He's really hard to please. Please just come feed him. And that I'm the right guy to call for that. So that's what I came to do. But that's not what he had me there for. He had me there because we're going to work very hard and we're not going to have breaks and people aren't going to get to go home. But they're going to eat really well that now that you're here, hopefully. He literally said, you feed people and you never stop and you always do more and never do less.
So now I want to kind of move on here to the moment we're living in, right? Because we're living in my opinion, in a moment where America seems to be returning to simpler values, right? Family dinners and outdoor living and ranch culture and the heritage traditions, and more importantly, comfort food rooted in storytelling. I was looking at the statistics when I was preparing for our interview, and analysts have even called the cowboy core movement one of the biggest lifestyle shifts in entertainment and fashion over the last several years. That's a bold statement. So, why do you think audiences have fallen so deeply back in love with this modern Western lifestyle and the kind of Louisiana comfort food and hospitality you bring into it?
I think it never left. I think that their love was always there for that. And I think that they were just desperate to have somebody tell them it was okay to do it again. And again, some of us never left. We've been here waiting for you all to come back. And but I think a lot of people were waiting for something or somebody out there to tell them that it's okay to, not work in a big office, or it's okay to, live off the land, or it's okay to eat biscuits and gravy for breakfast. It, Welcome back. That's all I got to say,
Oh, I
because
love it.
it's a good place to be.
And I think people are emotionally exhausted from curated perfection. I mean, most of us are craving experiences that feel grounding and emotional and warm and connected to something real again, right? And food is one of the fastest ways to create that emotional connection. Now, what's specifically fascinating is that you became more than just the chef. Fans recognize you. They associate you with the comfort and culture surrounding Yellowstone. And now you've continued that journey working with productions like Landman and Lioness, which further expands Taylor Sheridan's cultural footprint. Now, has it been surreal watching yourself become such a recognizable part of the larger Yellowstone and Taylor Sheridan universe?
Absolutely. Um, it's been very surreal. It also, I think it had to be me. I don't think it could have been anybody else. The way that it all went down, the way I ended up on camera, and the way that I ended up being on camera a lot more. Um, it's not for everybody. You get to do your show, and everybody has their place, but it's not for everybody being on camera or being in the spotlight. It can be very exhausting and draining, and it takes a certain type to go out there and do that. And I'm glad that he picked me to do it.
Now, the culture is moving beyond television and into TV immersive experiences, right? Like Bosque Ranch Live. So this is what we're talking about, the experiential moments where people aren't just watching this lifestyle anymore, but they're physically able to step into it through music and hospitality and food and community. So, what excites you most about bringing your Cajun cooking and Southern hospitality directly to guests attending Bosque Ranch Live this September?
It's been funny the last couple years doing all events and stuff like this and private stuff, and people just I didn't know I was doing anything that special. I was just doing the regular thing that I've always done, and that's go outside and light a fire and cook some meat and have some drinks, and I thought that was normal, but it's amazing how responsive people are to how much they crave it. It's intoxicating to them. Sometimes we forget because we live this every day, but it is a blast. You come in, the smell of the smoke and the fire, and watching me throw big knives around and lift giant animals into barbecues. People are intoxicated by it, and it brings me so much extra energy to see them be so enamored and so intensely attracted to this kind of activity.
Well, you are definitely a chef-tertainer. I'm going to coin that.
Guess so, yeah.
And that's what makes it so special. It's no longer passive entertainment. It's experiential storytelling where people can actually sit down, eat together, listen to music together, and emotionally live inside the atmosphere they've spent years watching on TV.
Yeah, nobody's ever accused me of doing anything passively.
That's okay. Well, no, and I don't think they will. And I think at the heart of all of this, whether it's a Hollywood production set, a ranch dinner, or a live event like Bosque Ranch Live, food still brings people together in one of the most universal ways possible. So that is definitely something that you have going for you, my friend. Now, when guests leave Bosque Ranch Live after experiencing the music and the atmosphere and your cooking, what do you feel they walk away feeling and remembering most?
Other than full, they'll be full. I just hope that they got to really experience what we're about down here in Texas, and I hope they come away with a good story. And well, as usual, usually I'm the big takeaway is the food, the steaks, and the fire, and I know we're planning on doing some really cool campfire late night activities, and I really hope that they get to meet people that they feel like their family.
You are amazing. And honestly, I think that's the future of luxury experiences anyhow, not just exclusivity,
Absolutely.
but emotional connection, great food, great storytelling, human interaction, because Lord knows we need more of that, and moments that people genuinely remember long after they're over. Gator, thank you so much for joining us today. You're a breath of fresh air, and I can't wait to taste your food.
Thank you, Zen. It was very nice to talk to you.
That was Chef Gabriel Gator Guilbeault. What an incredible conversation. From Louisiana kitchens to becoming part of Taylor Sheridan's inner creative world, Chef Gator has definitely helped shape the atmosphere and hospitality surrounding some of the most culturally influential television franchises of this generation, including Yellowstone, Landman, and Lioness. And now, well, you guys can experience that energy firsthand at Bosque Ranch Live this September 12th, where Gator will be preparing unforgettable Cajun-inspired lunch and dinner experiences that are going to bring Southern hospitality and modern ranch culture back to life. You can definitely follow him on the gram at Gator Gabe, and you can continue to check out the Bosque Ranch Live speaker series directly on our page, and head to bosqueranchlive.com to buy your tickets. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was the Bosque Ranch Live speaker series. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Bosque Ranch Live Concert Series. Country music's roots are deep and diverse, with stories told through raw emotion that bridge tradition and progress. Master storyteller Taylor Sheridan's Music Concert Series at Bosque Ranch offers audiences the chance to experience both the finest country music artists and up-and-coming artists, while celebrating the Western way of life and championing the people and brands that shape the community. Head to bosqueranchlive.com to learn more.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. I'm going to pass the mic to our Going Deep host, Lana Kerr, for an exclusive conversation with Eddie Yoon. Lana, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Going Deep. And I have the great honor and pleasure to have Eddie Yoon with us in the Going Deep podcast. Eddie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Lana, for having me.
This is going to be such an exciting conversation. But Eddie, before we begin, can you please share with our audience who Eddie is?
Yeah, so I have been a career growth strategist. So that's kind of been my training. I was a senior partner at the Cambridge Group for about 18 years, doing mostly B2C strategies for some of the largest companies in the world. So I had a weird track record of working with companies with a dominant market share. So I'd work with Anheuser-Busch with a 48 share of beer in the US, Gillette, 70 share of worldwide men's shaving. And my record, I think, Lana, was InSinkErator, has a 93 share of garbage disposals in the US and the like. So when you run into those companies, the traditional ways of helping a company grow just don't work. It's really hard and expensive to get that 94th share point. And so what I quickly realized was I had to kind of reinvent the playbook, which was, in order for these types of companies to grow, they had to grow the category, bring in new users to the category, new usage occasions, or increase price per unit. And then that led me to what I call this discipline of category design, or creating new categories, of which you are one of. And that was so much fun because, the large companies, it's kind of where consultants, their bread is buttered there, but you get kind of bored helping large companies say, I don't want to decline -1%. How do you get me to flat? You want to help companies grow and do legendary things. And so my work shifted to companies like American Girl, Keurig, Hydrofacial, which is where I met Clint and how I got into the aesthetic space. And so from then on, I really began a lifelong journey of writing and research about how do you actually create a new category? So I started writing with HBR in 2009. I've written about 60 articles with them. I wrote a book called Super Consumers, published by HBR. And then since then, I've gone out on my own just because that's the kind of company that I want to work with. I want to work with entrepreneurs like you. And then also, I started a writing business called Category Pirates. So we've written 4 or 5 books on category design. We have a Substack with 33,000 subscribers. And everything we write about is how do we help companies create the future? And that's what's been occupying my time, trying to stay out of trouble. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you, I'm one of those subscribers, and I've been enjoying your articles. You're such a great communicator.
Thank you.
So Eddie, again, so then you have helped companies understand people more deeply. I think that's your niche, as a super consumer. But I want to talk about what growth actually asks of the human inside it. Okay? So what belief about growth do you feel is hurting companies and the people they serve?
Well, there's a couple that come to mind, Lana. One is that most people misunderstand how growth really works. Most people, when they think, I want to grow my company, I want to grow my business, that's how they approach it, is how do I kind of inwardly make my business bigger? And that often can work in the near term, but the best way to grow actually is to be what I call a missionary, not a mercenary. The companies that are kind of mercenary, and it's not necessarily a judgment value, but they're looking inward. They're like, I make this thing, how do I sell more of it? Versus what we have found repeatedly in the research is that if you market your solution, people think you want their money. If you market the problem they're solving, then they think you want to help them. And that's the part that I have found, is that the greatest entrepreneurs, some of the greatest executives, they fall in love with the problem. They talk about why the problem is so terrible and what they want to do about it. And when they do that, not only do they engineer far greater solutions, what they end up doing is they find the super consumer who's also captivated and fascinated about this. How do I solve this problem? And by marketing the problem, what they find out is that, hey, you're on mission with me. I'm going to sync up with you. And wherever we go together, we're going to help each other that way. And I think that's the part that most people miss, is that it is so easy to become inward focused. And how do I just do what's best for me versus do what's great for the category? Lana, my research has shown that when you actually focus on making the category bigger, not about my sales, not about my pricing, but about how do I add customers to the category? How do I grow usage of the category? How do I grow pricing in the category? 1% of the brands capture 80% of the category upside. So
Wow.
it's the really counterintuitive part of if you actually make the pie bigger, you get the most upside. If you
Yes.
choose and chase the biggest upside, you actually gain less.
Yes, that is so interesting. I can definitely relate. I'm thinking of even when we started the CO2 V vulva vaginal line. I mean, the problem with that was that people weren't talking about a problem. That was a challenge. If people weren't talking about it, it was a problem that I was having. And I
Yes.
figured if I'm having it, other women are having it. So that's what I started doing, talking about the problem and making women understand this is a problem that you have. Don't you feel this, this, this? So I love that approach. And I think that was why I was fascinated by the journal that you have. So how do brands then, Eddie, build real loyalty without burning people out?
Yeah. So it really comes back to what you were just describing of you had a problem, you wondered if other people might have it. So you were talking about it. And I don't think loyalty in the traditional sense really exists in the sense of, hey, I spent some money to acquire you as a customer. You owe me, you bought my product last month. You owe me it doesn't work that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of us behave that way of like, just because we shopped here doesn't mean we'll shop there again, right? Loyalty is earned through shared mission, is what we just talked
Mm-hmm.
about. Like when you market a problem and you care about it, then people say, that Lana, I'm going to trust what she says because I am convinced that she wants to advance the mission more than her own bank account. And that when true loyalty, I'd rather reframe it as word of mouth because word of
Mm-hmm.
mouth was, and always will be the most effective form of marketing. It doesn't cost you anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the most trustworthy. Consumers don't trust big government. They don't trust big media. They don't trust companies anymore. They trust each other. And they trust when someone will stick their neck out and say, hey, this worked for me. They trust when someone says, I got a problem to talk about. It's a little personal and sensitive, but I feel like it's important for me to talk about because you might be suffering from the same thing. And when people do that, that's when you earn loyalty, is because people are loyal to others that are kind of on a mission or on a quest together. They're not loyal to a brand in the traditional
Yes,
sense.
yes. It's interesting you say that. There's a company, Body Health. I started using their product several years back, but they marketed to a problem, protein, the inability to metabolize it. And I was like, oh, I love all the education.
Yeah.
So I buy Body Health. I just stopped the subscription from the messaging because I'm tired of getting things on my phone, but I'm always going to buy them.
Yes.
So that's what loyalty. So I think the nail you have to I take the talk about the problem. We say, oh, they're talking about this problem. Okay, how are they going to solve it? Then you can say, oh, this works. You took the product or the service, you benefited from it. That's the solution, and then you're just going to continue buying them. You don't need to continue hearing from them all the time. But
100%.
yeah,
Yeah. And what's interesting about you buying that product, we talk about this idea of missionaries and mercenaries. The thing that I found in my research around super consumers is that they are on a quest. And sometimes it is rational. I have this physiological problem I'm trying to solve for it. But most of them are solving an emotional problem that stems from that. You know what? I have this rash here, but it makes me feel a certain way about myself that I don't feel good about, right? So I'd done some work for, my firm had done some work for Luxottica way back in the day. And we discovered, I have glasses. When we told people when you get a patient that is in their 40s and they set an appointment, book an extra 15 minutes because your eyesight drops precipitously at that age and that life
yes,
stage, and you start to question your own mortality. And you want to have margin of time to have empathy for them. But guess what? You can also trade up lots of other services and tests and diagnostics in that same session. So it's good for them, good for you. But if by understanding that, you know what? Yes, there's a rational benefit, there's an emotional benefit, and there's an aspirational benefit. Because some of them, the supers in particular, I want to solve for declining eyesight. I want to solve for the fact that it makes me feel mortal. And I want to
Mm.
solve for the fact that I aspire to live my healthiest, best version of myself into my 90s. And that's
Mhm.
not something that most people will do. And that's where you really understand loyalty as defined as lifetime value, because that quest will never go away. It is
Mm.
not something like I'm
Yes.
into this kind of wine and I changed my mind about it. It is a lifelong quest. And when you join the super consumer with it, you'll make a lot of money over the long term by helping them
Wow.
achieve that.
Maybe we should step back a little, Eddie, and just talk a little bit about how do you define the super consumer? What is it?
Yeah, it's funny. When I wrote my book, Super Consumers, some of my old partners got mad at me. They were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, you're making it really easy to define a super consumer because it's someone who spends a lot, and someone who cares a lot. That's
Mhm.
it. And they were like, "We make a lot of money telling people it's really hard and complicated, and you need to hire us to do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, and in some cases, it's really important. Some of the big firms will kind of say the consumer's complicated, and if you are a company with like a dozen brands of skin, like yes, you need to kind of parse out the complexity of the world, but most entrepreneurs in particular, but most companies, the super consumer is, the top 10% of the category people who are spending the most. So you can just track them in your data set. But they more important than how they spend their money is how they spend their time.
Mhm.
They spend their time researching, they spend their time browsing the aisle. Like part of how I got my career really kind of going was convincing Office Depot and Office Max that stapler super consumers existed. They're like, what are you talking about? I mean, haven't you seen the movie Office Space? The guy
Yeah.
likes a swing line stapler, right? But like the idea that humans are endlessly curious, they fall in love with categories. Some of them are dingbatty and weird. And if you just accept them for who they are and what they love, you're going to do well. And I think this idea of there are a small set of people that are obsessed with certain categories, and it may seem odd at first, but when you really dig into it, there's a real logic. And if you have empathy for them, you're like, I might kind of be into that too. And that's how things spread, right? The supers evangelize and create other supers. They don't, it's not brands that do that. Consumers
Mhm.
say, look at me, look at how my life has benefited from solving this problem. Wouldn't you like the same? They're like, oh yeah, let me join you on that. And
Mhm.
so I try to keep it very simple. Though, people will often ask, how do you find them, right? If you don't have a strong data set, like, oh, someone else controls my customer, I sell into retailers or practices or whatever. Um, the part that I say that the secret, I actually, if I could redo my book, I would redo it around these two other ideas. So super consumers are one thing. I buy a lot, care a lot. Birds of a feather flock together. So
Mhm.
super geos or super geographies exist, which is to say they're not all peanut butter spread all across all 40,000 zip codes in the US or in one country around the world. They are spiky in certain areas. And, I was telling you before, I was born and raised in Hawaii. Hawaii has the highest per capita consumption of spam.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's exactly
Really?
that. People are like, "Whoa, I didn't know that," right?
Okay.
And you're like, "Well, why is that the case?" A lot of Asians there. Tends to fit the Asian palate. People put it in fried rice or whatever. Strong military presence,
Mhm.
very strongly correlated with hey, there's a military base, and it's in the middle of nowhere. So if you have you need shelf stable foods, and so
Yes.
those are the three things that are predictive of spam. And so what you end up with is you can go to any 7-Eleven or gas station and find what's called the spam musubi. It's basically spam sushi that you sell for $2-3. It is a massive price premium.
Mhm.
Nowhere in the world would you be like, oh, I want to get some spam sushi, but here in Hawaii you have it, right? And that this idea of super geos exists everywhere, and especially in the space that we're talking about now
Mhm.
with aesthetics, is that most companies think I need to build a marketing presence, a sales force to reach off 40,000 zip codes. You probably need 400.
Yes.
That's all you really need. And some of them may not be the obvious ones that you think about. So that's kind
Mhm.
of the second idea. It's birds of a feather flock together, find them in these super geos. And the third one is probably the most fun, is that a super consumer of one category tends to be a super of 9 other categories. And so what that
Mm.
means is um, I might like spam, but there are other things that I kind of follow along with that, salty, savory, proteiny type snacks and the like. And so, why the best way that I found that was I had a company that I was helping out called Generac. They make standby generators. Your power goes out, you need a generator. And they were like, well, it's really hard to market these, Lana, because I don't want people don't want to talk about their power going out. It's
Yeah.
a terrible
Yeah.
thing to think about. And I was like, look, all you need to do is find people. If you open their kitchen cabinets, you see lots of gummy vitamins.
Mhm.
Like, what does vitamins have to do with generators? I'm like, it's the same benefit. It's the people who are Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. They're
Mhm.
ultra prepared for the zombie apocalypse. When COVID hit, they
Yes.
were ready to go
Yes. Oh
with
my God.
bottled
Yes.
water. They have more life insurance than they actually need. And so when you look at their lives and their credit card spending, you can see the pattern of I'm trying to solve this. How do I prevent my family and myself from hitting these dangers and risks? And if I protect against that, I can find them in one category, and they're highly likely to be buyers in the category that I'm trying to be in. And so It's one of these things where supers are very simple to solve for, but they are activated and discovered in kind of these weird one-off ways that people don't often think about.
Yeah. Right. As you're speaking, I can even think of myself. It's funny you talk about it because I went to the ophthalmologist and they sold me on getting new lenses. I mean, like synthetic lenses
Hmm.
because I can't see anymore. I mean, I dropped off at 40, then at 50 was another level.
Hmm.
No, 55. I'm like, okay, I really can't see. And then so now I'm ending up going to get the synthetic lenses in later this month.
I need to get those too, bro.
Yeah, oh, I know. Oh my goodness. I'm just now fantasizing how life is going to
Yeah.
change. You know, to swim under because I like to snorkel. I mean, and
Hmm.
just see again because I can't see. But yeah, it's that's an incredible thing. So okay, so you how can you tell then, based on what you're saying though, I hear that. But how can you tell when something is working now but will hurt later?
Yes, great question.
Hmm.
So there are times when uh, I will, when I work with companies on strategy, there's a lot of mystique to business strategy. Like a lot of books have been written about it, and strategy has a bit of this aura of like, oh, this is really scary and really hard. It's actually not, right? It's like what I was telling you before. Consultants like me tell you it's complicated and scary so that you hire them and all, right? But like strategy is pretty much three questions. Where are you today?
Hmm.
Where do you want to go? And how are you going to get there? Pretty simple, right? And that what is not well understood, people aren't really self-aware that 99% of what we've been taught about strategy is wrong because it's all comes from the military. All the great strategy books come from military books, come from military thinkers. And in the military, it's a zero sum. For
Hmm.
Lana to win, I have to lose.
Yes.
That's not true in business,
Hmm.
right? We can both win. And
Yes.
that's not often the strategies that people employ. So what I will tell people is that, out of 100 companies, probably 95 of them have what I call a be the winner strategy. It's a zero sum. For me to lose, for me to win, you have to lose. And it's very much focused on, well, I have to beat Lana. There's the
Hmm.
patient, there's a consumer. I have needs. Forget you. I just
Hmm.
want to beat Lana.
Hmm.
And those are the strategies that can get you far in the near term, but ultimately lose in the long term. Because what ends up happening is your execution tends to be one of three things: better, faster, cheaper.
Hmm.
My carbondiculator is better than Lana's. My carbondiculator is faster than Lana's or is cheaper than Lana's. And then you come back and say, no, mine is better. And then so on and so forth. Everybody loses. I remember, in the infant formula world, you have Similac and you have Enfamil, and it's kind
Hmm.
of a duopoly, right?
Yes.
And the Similac folks were so mad when the Enfamil folks added DHA ARA.
Hmm.
And this happens in aesthetics all the time, right? They made a claim, they increased their formulation costs. Both sides knew it had no real benefit to the baby,
Hmm.
but it was a short-term market share grab. And then Similac knew, doggone it, now I have to do that. We both make less money as a result of that.
Yeah.
And that's the strategy that tends not to win. Now, the two other strategies that remain, so out of the 95 that are doing the be the winner, 4 out of the 100 will do what I call be the best, right? I have the best thing. And it's usually their strategy ends with that EST or OST, right? Like
Hmm.
I am the fastest, I am the most, I am the whatever else it is. And that can work for a while, right? In that you can generally grow the category through pricing. So Nvidia says, I have the best chips, I have the best toxin, I have the best, whatever else it might be. That can work, but you end up with innovation pipelines that I always call going for extra credit on a pass-fail exam.
Hmm.
A lot of tech, R&D, scientists, a lot of great entrepreneurs, they fall into this trap of like, hey, the clinicals are 15% better, but the patient's like, did I get the outcome or did I not get the
Yes.
outcome? It's not 15% more of an outcome, it's binary yes or no. And so the strategy that tends to remain, the research that we found is that category creators, which I think we get along, you grow revenue 4 times faster and you grow market cap 6 times higher
Hmm.
by doing what I call be different.
Yes.
And it's just, there's nothing else like it. I'm a one of one. You said, do I have competition? Not really.
Hmm.
And what is my path to growth? It is educating the market on a problem that they didn't know that they had, that once you experience the solution behind it, you're like, where has this been all my life?
Yes.
And they're
Yes.
willing to pay whatever they want for that. So that, you know, you kind of see, I can kind of walk into a company, you just sit for them for 5 minutes, and you're like, oh yeah, you're a be the winner, zero sum. You might win in the short term, but you're going to lose in the long run, right? Oh, you're trying to be the best. Okay, fine. You know, that can go for a little bit, but at some point you hit diminishing returns. But the people who are like, no, no, we're doing something completely different, solving a different problem in a non-obvious way. You know, it's like that's the companies that you bet on. And whether you're an investor, whether you're an employee, like you want to work for those companies
Mhm.
because they will hit the moonshot and not in a way that some of the others will do.
Very interesting. So then, Eddie, how would you? I'm thinking of aesthetics. I'm thinking of the conference just going on right now, and there was a regenerative panel, and of course, you're having the different exosomes, the different, PRP,
Yeah.
and all these different things out there, and everyone is saying they're the best. How can they compete? I mean, they're not all category creators. I mean, they're having several of those. What would be the solution for them?
Great question. So it's and you're 100% right. If we went downstairs, you'd hear, I'm the best, all over the place. And so what is required for, you could take any of the companies downstairs, what they would need to do to succeed is one of a couple things. One is take their solution and stop talking about comparing yourself to someone. You don't want to compare yourself to anybody.
Yes.
I don't want a comparison. I want to be a one of one, right? And you take that solution and you solve a different problem, a non-obvious problem. So one of the things we wrote about in our book Snow Leopard was the interesting combination of an obvious and a non-obvious
Mhm.
title of a book or problem in a business, right? Most companies are kind of obvious,
Mhm.
and that's like, hey, your skin is aging, obvious problem. Everybody tries to solve for that with an obvious solution, regen. And that doesn't work. It's crowded. Nobody cares
Mhm.
about that. Now you can take a non-obvious problem. I have a niche, skin condition with a really complicated non-obvious solution, and then that gets people like, okay, I don't know what to do with that, right?
Yes.
But you can do one of two things. You can take an obvious problem, your skin is aging, with a non-obvious solution that is not tech oriented, but it's like, hey, it's a treatment. I want you to come in once a week, and I'm going to do it for you this way. And it's not about my exosomes are better than yours. It's the way that I deliver it is in a way that is easier, fits into your life. It solves for it. Or you take a non-obvious problem within the obvious solution and say, I'm going to do this, and it's not for your face. It's for your
Genitals.
yes, your
Yes,
genitals,
yes.
right?
Mhm.
Perfect
Yes,
example. Like,
yes.
oh, I would never have thought to apply it there,
Yes.
but that pairing is what you're trying to do is you're not trying to outscience your competitor. That's always a losing battle.
Mhm.
You're trying to get a busy consumer who's doesn't really care about what we're doing. You want them to stop and say, wait, you just said something different.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I know you want to do that, but you mean I mix this in my coffee and I get this? Like, tell me more about that. Or as you said, I solve for this. I didn't even know that I had this problem on that part of my body. Tell me more about that.
Yes.
Right. And that, it's funny. Aesthetics folks won't like this, but my friends at Dude Wipes, these three
Yes,
guys from
yes,
Chicago, $200+ million brand in 10 years, right? They solved an obvious problem, butt wiping,
Yes, yes.
with a non-obvious solution. Hey, let me give you an extra large wipe,
Yes.
and let me talk to you about like why toilet paper doesn't get the job done, right? And it's not even the product is larger. They strengthen the fiber so it doesn't break, but it's still flush. They've done all that stuff. But the non-obvious thing is they incessantly talk about it so that you realize like, oh yeah, this is actually a problem that I have that I didn't realize that I had, and I want to solve for it.
Yes.
And Kimberly Clark can't do anything about it. They're like, my lawyers won't let me go anywhere near what they're talking about there, right? So it's a obvious problem in a non-obvious way, and that most companies and most executives here, at the conference, I will say, you can be so smart you're stupid. That's the risk that people have, is that you can't just be trying to win. I'm smarter than the next time. My product is smarter, my better. No. You actually want to dumb it down a little bit solve a non-obvious problem or do it in a non-obvious way.
As you said, and even when you said the three questions, simplicity is always the key to
Yes.
everything. You just dumb it down, simplify it, and think outside of the box. That's So before the data shows it, though, how do leaders know something is wrong or something is right?
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's the best way to know if you're on the right track is what I call this idea of weird data, right? If the data is conventional, you should be worried. If like, hey, I'm not learning anything, nothing's really catching my eye with this, and our business is growing, you should be a little worried. Like, and that may sound counterintuitive. What you want is yes, our business is growing, and there's this kind of thing that's going on here that I cannot explain. And when I see that, I'm like, okay, now you're onto something, right? Because sometimes you just get lucky, right? The business is growing, timing is right, the right tailwind, the right timeline, and it's going up. But that means that you're not in control of your destiny, and that's a problem, right? When you have weird data, you have a choice.
And when you say weird data, just explain that a little
Yeah.
more.
So weird data is like these don't look like my traditional customers. Like, where did these people come from, right? Or they're using it in an odd way. What's up with that, right? Or why do these people, they're willing to pay a stupid premium on this, and I don't understand why, right? And so it's all kind of category revenue is one of three variables: number of customers, units per customer, price per unit. And you're looking for weirdness on either extreme there, right? Is like, I got these weird customers, or I don't have the traditional customer. What's going on there, right?
Yes.
It's they're using it a lot, or they're using it very little, and they're paying an extraordinary premium, or they're paying a fraction of what they should be paying, but I don't quite understand it. So like, the example that I give is like if I told you video games as a category on fire, people would be like, okay, great. If I told you the number of video gamers worldwide has gone up 8 times, people would be like, oh, that sounds crazy. And if I told you the vast majority of them are middle-aged women, people would be like, what are you talking about, right?
Okay.
And it's casual gaming, right?
Wow.
It's the freemium games on your phone. It's the colored ones that you don't pay for, and then you realize, oh, I want to keep going, so 99 cents, I'll do this and that, or whatever else it is. It is not the teenage boy that we have and this and that playing basement, expensive console games. Like, and that's the kind of weird data that I encourage people to look for. Is like, never would have EA or Blizzard or any of the traditional video game companies been like, what we should do is walk away from teenage boys and go to these middle-aged. No, it's not going to happen. They are discovered, and they always exist. It's like, what's going on there? And when you have that, what I will tell you is that it is such a winning opportunity, because most companies will say, that's weird, Lana, let's never speak about this again. Because I can't explain it, right?
Yes.
The really great entrepreneurs and executives, they say, let me dig around there and see what's going on and see if I can unpack it. And maybe, just maybe, is an insight that I can double or triple down on to really accelerate my growth. That's the part that people miss out when there's an inflection point, when there's weird data. And you can choose to ignore it, or you can choose to double down. And the people who embrace it, have empathy, and then they put their resources disproportionately against it, those are the ones who create new categories and grow disproportionately.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because even in going back to our product in the CO2 Live V, first I thought that this is a product that would appeal to women my age and older. Like, it's going to be women in their 50s and their 60s. And that was not the case. It's the younger women. And I couldn't understand why, but then I know, and throughout the course, I understand why, what they're looking for, and they're more educated. And so they don't have the stigma and all of the other stuff. So so now we market to them,
Perfect.
So so that's how you can tell when the data is going right. But how do you know when it's wrong? How do you know when things are going wrong before the data?
Yeah. It's when anytime where your curiosity is dulled, or you're not kind of anything that lulls you into complacency, that's where I see the risk, right? It's not necessarily that things are bad, but that, Andy Grove, the old CEO of Intel, had the book Only the Paranoid Survive. Right? And I'm a big believer in that. Is like the data that you should be scared of is when you don't know what's going on and when you don't see anything interesting happening, and you can't explain it. And that if it's one of those things where, companies are growing or they're not, they're declining. When you're growing, here's what happens is that people assume, well, it's because I'm a genius, right? Or we're so smart, or our strategies are working. And they don't kind of take a step back and say, hey, maybe that's not, let's assume I'm not the genius and let's see if there's something else going on here, right? So McKinsey had come out with some data long ago that was like 60% of a brand's growth comes from things that have nothing to do with the brand. It's the momentum of the category. And this is the part that I always kind of get ahead of, is like, no matter how good your strategy, if you have a tailwind, then you're going to grow.
Yeah.
No matter how good your strategy is, if you have a headwind, you're not going to grow, right? So like, I feel very badly for all the people in the spirits and alcohol business, like Gen Z, they're not drinking.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't drinking. That's a really hard place to be. And so you got to figure out, okay, now all the strategies become more important. The real scary part is when you have a tailwind and you assume that you're a genius.
Yeah.
And you're not kind of deconstructing like, well, okay, let's assume that 60% is not because of me and our team's smart. Let's figure out what the tailwind is. Let's deconstruct the tailwind to see, is it more users? Is it more usage per user? Is it pricing? Whatever else it is. And then go deep into that. And let's see if we can grow even faster. It is so complacency versus curiosity. It's not the actual data. It's the mindset.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that. So when leaders define a category, what do they owe the people living inside of that category?
Yeah. So it is a commitment to frame, name, and claim the category. Is really what I would talk about in category design. So when you are an evangelist and you're on the vanguard of leading kind of what's there, what you owe people is providing language and structure and a framework around what is actually happening here, right? And so when we talk about frame, name, and claim, that's really, you frame the problem, right? And so that every great brand is solving a problem that was underappreciated or under, valued and the like. And that it is oftentimes the responsibility of the brand or the leader or the CEO to frame the problem as simply as possible. Because, we talked about simplicities earlier. We have a saying, simplicity is velocity.
Yeah.
Pure, number one, if you have a large organization, the game of telephone, when you tell the strategy to your executive team and they tell it to their sales reps and they tell it, if it's not simple, people won't remember it and they won't follow and execute it. If it's not simple, investors won't put money into it. If it's not simple, customers won't buy it. And so this idea of you need to, the Mark Twain adage of, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to write you a short one, so I wrote you a long one. You need to frame the problem, distill it down to its most basic and component parts, and frame the problem as what you're doing. Then you need to name it. You need to name the category in a way, again, that pairing of obvious and non-obvious so that people can remember and it sticks, right? And that then you claim it by providing a telltale sign for when the category is working or why it's going for you. So, my partner, Clint Carnell, famously did this at Hydrofacial, right? 3 minutes, 3 steps, 30 minutes, best skin of your life, right? Frame the problem of complexity. There's a lot of things going on here. And when Hydrofacial was called Edge Systems, right? People told me, hey, Clint, there's actually 17 technical steps. You're like, I don't care. There's 3 steps, right? Cleanse, hydrate, cleanse, extract, hydrate, right? 30 minutes. Well, technically, Clint, you should actually take a little bit. I don't care. Make it 30 minutes. Revenue per hour per room is what the provider really cares about. And they're going to be excited about this and claim it. Well, oh, you know what? The gunky that's at the end of the treatment, I want you to show it to, no, we can't do that. No, that's the proof.
Yes.
I'm claiming the fact that it actually worked. In a world where there's lotions and potions, this is actually a telltale sign that it's going there. And that what he did helped create a category that was at its peak $4.5 billion, right? And that what most people, in the aesthetics category will say, well, that's too basic. You don't understand the power of my science. Nobody cares about any of that stuff, right? frame, name, and claim, most powerful
Frame,
thing that you can
name, and
do,
claim.
and that you owe it to your employees so that they can repeat that over and over again to their stakeholders, their customers. But most importantly, you owe it to your customers because you want to make it easy to drive word of mouth. Again, most powerful form of marketing, and that business marketing strategy, all this kind of stuff, is more like songwriting than it is strategy. You want to write a lyric that someone's going to remember and
Yes.
sing.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
You want a chorus,
Yes.
right? That's what you want. And that's what you owe, because your supers are willing to sing along with you if you teach them how to sing it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Eddie, that is frame, name, claim. Simple. It's, even it's so interesting you're saying that. And I'm going back to even our technology. At first people were like, how could a gel do that? Like, it's too easy. Okay. We were just in with KZ, and she understood the biology, and from that she can make, before the data came in. Sometimes you have to go with it before you have the data.
Absolutely.
Because you have to make it simple, and then now that's why this category has really taken off for us.
Well, it's the power of the boards effect, right?
Yeah.
And it's if you get a super or a provider that wants to know more, you can double click there.
Yeah.
But having a simple way to frame, name, and claim what the boards
Yes.
effect is, inside out, all that kind of good stuff there, right? I mean, that's what you guys are doing. But the languaging is the single hardest thing for a business to do, and it can be excruciating. Oh my gosh, it's like you're being so tedious about. But if you get the words right,
Yes.
Yes. In the same way, Mariah Carey makes a lot of money at Christmas time from
Yes.
her one song. Like, you get the song right, and people will sing it forever.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So, okay, AI and all these different systems are coming up. Why do you think that people still trust people more than systems?
Yeah, it's people trust people over system. You're human, right? And you're trained to do that. And there's going to be a natural distrust with AI. Actually, what's interesting is the more category parts that we've written about AI, the distrust of AI kind of it spans old people to young people. Like, there's a lot of people that distrust it. What we have found is that the people who are making the most money and the greatest impact with AI do so because they use it to become more human. And here's what I mean by that, right? Is that at Category Pirates, we created something called the Pirate Eddie AI bot, right? So, the people who work with me know I'm an introvert, married to an even stronger introvert who's getting more introverted over time. I'm glad you caught me at this time, because at around 4 o'clock, I stopped talking. I run out of words for the day, right? And so I know this about myself, and I want to help people at scale through category design. So we created with Delphi.ai an AI bot trained on all of our writing. I trained it on my voice, so you can call it, you can text it, you can chat with it, whatever. And our subscribers are saying like, "Oh, Eddie, I had a 4-hour conversation with you last night." I'm like, better the bot than me, because I would not have survived that. But they talk about the ability to clone yourself at scale to help as many people as possible. And so whether you're a CEO or you're, a super, prestigious derm or plastic or whatever, like, people want your time. You cannot be everywhere all the time. It is imperative that you clone yourself through an AI, not to replace yourself, but to provide yourself at scale. That's kind of point number one, right? And we have a bot making 6 figures for us, which is great. So number one, it's a financial incentive, but number two, you want to be able to help the most amount of people that you can. But the second part that people get, they need to get about AI, about the humanity of AI, is that if you're not an expert where a clone makes sense, the best way to use AI is to puke your emotions, right? AI is not going to judge you.
Yes.
If Lana, I just told you my rawest emotional feeling, you'd end the podcast right now. You go, okay, that guy is like a loony case or whatever, right? But
I wouldn't know it. But okay.
That's very kind of you. But AI, you can treat it like your best friend.
Yeah.
Who won't judge you, because sometimes your best friends will judge you, right? Has better memory than your best friend, and can structure your thoughts in a way without bias, right? And so whether you're an expert, if you're an expert, you should clone yourself with AI. That's humanity at scale. If you're not an expert, just puke everything that you're struggling with, the things that you care about, the business problems that you have. And it's like a living, breathing journal that can
Mhm.
play it back to you, remember what you said, and provide you perspective as you need for it. And that why that's important is that most people I find aren't self-aware. They
Mhm.
don't know what they're feeling, and you don't know what you're feeling until you puke it out.
Yes.
They can't make sense of their mess of their emotions and feelings, and so AI can do that really well. And that AI can say, you know what, Lana, you've told me all these things. I'm noticing a pattern that blank, blank, blank. Or you've told me you have these raw emotions, but your goal is here.
Mhm.
How do they sync up with it, right? And it allows you to actually be the most human you can be, because not everybody has, loneliness is a massive epidemic
Yeah.
in America.
Mhm.
Not everyone has somebody they can confide in. Not everyone has, you run a business, like it can be lonely being the
Mhm.
CEO. You
Mhm.
you don't have anyone to really, barf your feelings or fears or your hopes and aspirations to. That those two extremes, cloning expertise and empathy at scale, and really just being a raw,
Yes.
unfiltered human, some of the greatest use cases of AI. And that's what I encourage people to do, is that it's not Terminator, it's not any, I mean, I guess it's theoretically possible,
Yes.
but you will be more human than you've ever been if you use it properly.
Yes, I totally agree, and I do that. I do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah.
Therapist, one of the number
Yes.
one use cases of ChatGPT. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it's talk about remembering. It remembers, or she remembers. I
Yes.
name mine. Her name is Chatty. Yeah.
Naming your AI.
Yes.
Perfect
Yes.
way to
Yeah.
do that. It's the first step to being, okay, this is not weird. It's going to be a normal thing that I do. Absolutely. We name ours Lucy. So
Oh, Lucy. Okay. Okay. Wow. Well, we're wrapping up here, Eddie. And before I ask the last question, what are you most excited about today?
I'm excited about the category. Like it's one of those. I spent decades in consulting before I ever came near aesthetics. I'd done healthcare work, I'd done consumer work, never really done this. Um, and you have perceptions coming in, you're like, oh, I don't know how I think about this and whatnot. And I've really come to love the category in that I think about it as, there's a lot of societal problems that we have, obesity, healthcare being one of them. And I've come to really appreciate that vanity might actually be the key to sanity with your health, right? And that being a little more vain can actually be a good thing for most people.
Mhm.
And that's what I hope, is that the category kind of pulls its head out of the sand, and it's not just like, what does Lana think and what does Dr. Derm think and what is, this and that. What is the super consumer in the middle of Ohio who's never been to a dermatologist, what do they think? How can I help be of service to them, right? And that you have a category that is fighting for share. Brands, my exosomes beating it. We have single digit penetration still.
Mhm.
How do we get to a point where you expand the like video games, like
Yes.
quadrupled, the number of video gamers, but how do you expand the category, consumers, usage, and even price points? Like this is the part of, there are parts of aesthetics that I think are vastly underpriced, and
Mhm.
that people are like, what are you talking about? It's really expensive. Like, well, there's a lot of ways to price that people haven't tackled just yet. And so that's my hope, is that people don't make the leap that everybody's going to get an injection or a toxin or this type of a thing, but it should not be single digits.
Yeah.
It should be double
Yes.
digits, and there's a path to get there. And that if we just get out of our way, like the last time I was at IMCAS, I told Clint, I was like, bunch of word salad. Like
Mhm.
people are saying words that I understand. I have no idea what you're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Because it's just like a bunch of chatter with each other. So kind of get out of your, navel gazing, think about the broader category, and how do you expand the aesthetic super consumer so that you go beyond the traditional strategies that actually don't get you very far, beating each other up and kind of growing the pie for everybody. That's my hope for the
Yes.
category.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, so when you hear, final question, when you hear going deep, what feels missing in how we build today, and what would you need to change long term?
Yeah, what I love about the name of the podcast is we talk about that curiosity versus complacency. Is the key is to kind of be a toddler and ask why 7 times over. You know, hey, my sales are up. Why are my sales up? Well, we have new consumers in the category. Why do we have new consumers in the category? Well, they're coming, we thought it was this older consumer. Now it's a younger consumer. Why is that the case? Well, they have a ton of college debt. They aren't getting married and having kids. And so it's a bunch of, YOLO living and this and that. Okay. Why is that the case? Why?
Mhm.
And you will get to something that is ground truth, that is sustainable for the strategy. Most people give up, or most people aren't asking why. If they ask why, it's one or two whys into it.
Mhm.
And you don't go all the way into it, right? Because what you will find is that you have this Gen Z who feels completely betrayed by the American dream, is not going to have kids because how can I if I can't, my unemployment's higher than the rest of the country. I can't own a job or own a house because the boomers won't sell the houses to me and this and that, right?
They're living too long.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And then when you go into what it is that they care about, you might actually find the gem of a nugget that you can build a strategy that you can build an empire on for the next 20 years. And that people just give up too early.
Mhm.
They're not curious, and that usually a lack of curiosity, that's probably the telltale sign that you're a mercenary, not a missionary.
Mhm.
If you are a missionary, you will be like, oh, why?
Yes.
Because that the missionaries in aesthetics, they don't have the category has them. They cannot give up on the category. They cannot stop innovating, stop questioning, stop wondering. And so when they do that, everybody's going to thrive and benefit from it.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
that's why going deep is important.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Eddie, you're just so amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You shared so much with us today. I think our listeners will get a lot of, especially business owners and founders and people in aesthetics or whatever business, get a lot of value from what you said. So thanks so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. And we hope that you come back another time.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you, Lana.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone.
We're going deep, that's what they see, into the parts we don't usually speak.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com. Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. We are at the end of our date. Remember to join me right here on A Moment of Zen every Saturday, or you could head directly to amomentofzen.com for live listening links and episode downloads in your city. Also, remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on your home TV streaming platform. You could head directly to mox.yourhometv.com. It's family-friendly programming, no app download required. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors, advertisers, and partners that continue to make this show possible. And remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. We'll be back next week.